Joining us now is Paul Post, an associate professor at the University of Chicago and non-resident fellow at Chicago Council on Global Affairs. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So these new developments this morning, President Biden expected to announce a ban on Russian oil imports. Also, Shell announcing it's halting purchases of Russian crude oil. In the term of sanctions, is this a much bigger blow, or is this not going to have an impact?
This is significant because up until now, there's been these carve-outs for oil. And as long as Russia is able to export oil, especially to China, as long as they're able to do that, that's going to help keep them financially afloat. Up until now, most of the sanctions have been focused on the financial side, the banking sector, SWIFT, but this truly is a major blow to Russia, especially given that they could benefit from the higher oil prices.
Talk about fighter jets and how much of a game changer that could be. We keep talking about this. They're going to get them. They're not going to get them. They're worried about escalating the situation. Does there need to be tougher talk towards Putin? Does he respect that more than just sanctions?
I think you've touched on exactly why this is a complicated issue. On the one hand, these fighter jets are necessary for Ukraine to be able to prevent Russia from acquiring what we would call air superiority. On the other hand, because they would be coming from NATO countries, and in particular Poland, this does carry the risk that Russia could view that as a provocation by NATO, and that could lead to an escalation of the war from going from just being a war focused on Ukraine to becoming a wider regional war.
We've seen this stalled line of Russian tanks. We don't know if they've been disabled or not. If there's any setbacks to President Putin, do you think he's digging in more? And wondering what your thoughts are on what his end game ultimately is.
That's actually a big part of my concern. I don't view the troubles that the Russian military is having as something that would lead them to suddenly withdraw from the country. I view it as creating the conditions for a protracted conflict, one in which the only way that Russia leaves the country is if Russia itself chooses to leave the country. And so what you're seeing as reference to like the stalled caravan are conditions that can lead to that protracted conflict. If that's the case, it does become more difficult to envision what the end game could be. What would be an agreement that Russia would find acceptable to be able to pull out their troops, given how much they've already invested? And would such an agreement also be acceptable to Ukraine, to NATO, to the West? It's hard to see what such an agreement would be.
Yeah, we've had a military analyst and a CIA analyst say that they don't think that Russia can hold Ukraine. So if you can't hold it, what's the point? What's a win for Putin?
I think that's exactly right. Going into this campaign, I think Russia's objective may have been to actually control, conquer, and even annex Ukraine. But because of the military situation on the ground, that no longer looks possible. Having said that, that also doesn't mean that they can leave Ukraine. They can stay there. They can continue to fight. You can create a protracted conflict, with the objective perhaps of achieving regime change or some sort of agreement that would allow Russia to have annexation of the eastern provinces, maybe recognition of Crimea, perhaps even a declaration by Ukraine that they would never join NATO. Now, again, what those things would look like, those might be things that are possible for Russia to accept, but would they be possible for Ukraine to accept? I doubt it.
Hey, Paul, real quick, these threats from Putin about nukes, is that just talk? I mean, he's going to threaten that anytime anybody does anything from NATO or otherwise? What do you do with that?
About nuclear weapons, we're always dealing with very low probabilities. And I still think we have a low probability of seeing nuclear weapons being used. The problem is when you're talking about nuclear war, those low probabilities matter and they make people very worried. And so we have to take such threats, such as raising the nuclear readiness level, we have to take those seriously, even if it's still a low probability that Putin would actually cross that threshold.
All right, Paul Post, we appreciate you joining us.